It's November 14th, 2009. We're in Sherry Gocke's studio in Los Angeles. And this is the Waitresses. My name is Jerri Allyn.
What?
Want to give your name?
Sure. Leslie Belt.
Denise Yarfitz Pierre. Ann Gauldin. And at the same time I was getting into feminism. I came here to go to the FSW, and there was a real disconnect between feminism, going to the FSW, being part of the women's building, and then waitressing, and it was very jarring going between the two of them. So I had actually started to do some writing about it.
In class I did a performance about this waitress that was serving death, and I was wearing all black and I had my face painted kind of like a skeleton, and I was endlessly serving like this black coffee poisonous stuff and collecting pennies, just endlessly collecting change. And that was one of the first waitress images that I was starting to explore, because I had this many years of waitressing behind me, and it was just coming out in the student work that we were exploring at the Women's Building. I think that's when Jerri and I first started to connect about the image of the waitress.
So I was actually waitressing my way through art school in San Francisco at the San Francisco Art Institute, and where all our crits were like about form and style. They weren't anything personal in any way, shape, or form. And I was making ceramic cats with big pussies on them. and definitely no one wanted to hear that I was waitressing my way through art school, and that I felt like a piece of meat doing cocktail waitressing at the Fern bars in San Francisco. And Faith and Suzanne came as they were year-long artist in residence, and they launched this feminist art program there for the year, and I took that year. And they introduced us to this idea that, first of all, art didn't happen in a vacuum. Like, art history was really, we were taught as if it happened in a vacuum. And they put a social, political, and economic context on it. And they also introduced us to performance and video and installation, these new forms, and these two really critical questions they asked us, which was, what do you want to say, and who do you want to say it to? Like, who is your audience? So for me, I wanted to talk about working women, my experience as a working woman, and I also wanted to talk with other workers in the restaurant and my bosses who were constantly sexually harassing us and trying to get us to sleep with them, and I wanted to talk to the customers.
For example, things like I noticed that when I wore short skirts, my tips went up, or being harassed by the boss. One boss I had there actually fired me because I wouldn't sit on his lap. He would flirt with the waitresses, and we shared stories like that, and that got us thinking about common experience of women working in this kind of job, and how it's a metaphor for women in a lot of different job situations and women in the world, how they're treated.
I was not an artist at all. And actually I went to the Women's Building. I got picked up hitchhiking, and some women were going to the Women's Building, and so they said, "You want to come and we'll take you home afterwards." And I'd never been there before, and it was like going to lesbian Disneyland. There was just like, the place was so full of lesbians. And I was an animation camera person, is what I was doing for a living, which was already fun, but it was film, and it was very expensive and very, like, I couldn't make a point, it would be a long time before I would have the kind of ability to tell my story, and so then, I'm not sure, then stuff happened, but Jerri said, "Would you like to have a drink?" And so I thought she was asking me out. And I said, I would very much, you bet. And then she said, "Could you wear like a waitress uniform?" Well, as a matter of fact,
Serve the drinks to us.
as a matter of fact, I can. No, I think we went to some cocktail bar downtown and we paid with
To
a
have
penny.
a meeting?
No, to pay with the pennies. I mean, it was a performance, but that whole part had not been made clear to me at all. That we were gonna, but it was fun.
This image, it's an image I think in Roman art of Diana the goddess, and she's, the front of her is all covered with breasts, and there are several images like that, you know, in Roman art. And, you know, it's a goddess, so I placed her in the context of a restaurant, as, you know, as what, you know, that every restaurant should have like a shrine to her, as being like this all nurturing, you know, all providing, and because the waitress is expected to, you know, be serving everybody, to be providing everything, but the waitress is, you
Like
know,
this.
kind of down, you know,
Instantly.
yeah, it's such a contrast, but you know, kind of putting that sort of image of, no, this nurturing and this being able to provide is something that's sacred and was revered, and so much in our culture, especially in the metaphor of a waitress, is demeaned. And so at some point I wrote that piece, I don't remember when, and then Anne, at some point, you know, it's all becomes kind of cloudy, you had this concept for this costume, and I was thinking about making.
Do you want to describe the costume?
Well, the costume is a pink waitress dress with covered with the breasts like Diana of Ephesus. And
But they're not painted.
The breasts are latex molded
the good part.
sculptures, and they were made from molds of the waitress's members' breasts. So I remember us getting together for one meeting where I actually cast everyone's breast in plaster, and then it took me a while to make multiples of the breasts and then sew them all together onto the costume.
Definitely one of our most beloved images, the waitress goddess Diana. And
Oh,
every year
yeah.
we actually get several requests from art historians for that image. They're introducing it in their class. And the other like really favorite image, which I think you and Jamie maybe developed, was the Wonder Waitress.
Yeah.
Well, what I remember is that it was the skit that would happen in the restaurant was that there'd be a completely harassed waitress. Like first
Right.
she was serving, and then she got really more and
Spinning
more
around.
harassed. Yeah, like a customer was demanding. So one of us played a customer. That was
Right.
it.
And the
Because
boss.
I think you're playing a customer or a boss in one
Yeah,
of
she
the
was
boss
between
some
two
of the
of those.
images.
Yeah, we
we need
switched
this, we
around in
want
that
this,
role.
we
Yeah.
want this. And then at some point, somebody starts going, na 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 na. And the waitress flips around, opens her uniform, and flipped open with Velcro, and became Wonder Waitress.
This is a job for Wonder.
That's right.
Oh, you definitely wrote funny stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually remember it as a deliberate strategy that some of our meetings or sessions or consciousness raising sessions would get so heavy with the sexual harassment that we just kind of went to using humor. And luckily, yeah, you're a terrific humorist.
But
we were able to really lighten things.
Yeah, I mean, I
and
think that
deliver
was
a message that was serious yet in a fun and lighthearted way.
And I was thinking like about just in terms of roles, that's what I think that was my role, was to help it be, help y'all's message. It was my message too, of course, but to help it be more widely, people to be able to hear it, just sit with it a moment, like laugh and then go,
I booked all the restaurants that we were in. So that first week that we launched, it was a week-long series of performances that in my conceptual art mind thought, okay, everyone who enters into our space is part of our performance in that, whoever comes into these restaurants. And we performed over meal times every single day. And then in the evenings there are these panels. But during the day, the meal times, how I sold it to the restaurants was that our pals would be coming.
That's
And
right.
So they
Yeah.
would we would
They'd be
bring
buying
business, and they were totally into it.
Well, and some of the customers that were there not suspecting us thought that the waitresses were actually revolting in the restaurant itself.
That was my favorite.
Oh, that's
Because they
right.
Yeah.
didn't realize
Yeah.
that we were performers coming in and not actual waitresses in the restaurant because we wore waitress uniforms.
Yeah. People still tell me today that they tip more after seeing
As a
the,
result,
the
I know I
waitress.
do. You know, there wasn't like, I know, but it would just suddenly it'd be like, what about a parade? And then before you knew it, everybody
We
was-
organized 35 women to
Well,
march.
well,
and it was
actually,
this pots and
I
pans and
remember
kitchen
it being
utensil
another
band.
Suzanne Lacey. I remember it being another Suzanne Lacey thing because in her performance art class, she had us write down like 50 of our wildest
Impossible
performances, and this is the part that I didn't remember if it was my idea or your idea because all of our ideas are so shared. But
Yeah.
I remember it being an assignment.
Really? I didn't remember
it was
that.
a wildest fantasy to have hundreds of marching waitresses in the streets, banded together, you know, in
Well, we got
solidarity.
35 of them.
And it was, I mean, it was we cut a swath. I mean, we were arresting to look at, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
it was totally
And
fun.
what a
Well,
racket.
and that little ditty that we sang.
And
We are the marching waitresses, the finest in the land.
And we were banging pots, as I recall, right?
Yeah,
Banging-
pots and
and there was
pans,
noise.
utensil. Oh, you know what I just flashed on too? We opened for Lily Tomlin at
That's
that Women's
right.
Building fundraiser.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
So I think you also staged that. We also did snippets because Lily Tomlin did her waitress character,
Mildred.
but Mildred, but we
But I remember
we opened with with
her.
Wonder Waitress and a few other vignettes.
I remember her saying that the breast was the most eloquent, I think, piece of art that she'd ever seen. The breast suit.
But I was kind of constantly back and forth. Am I going to be an artist? Am I going to be a social activist lawyer? So the feminist art really brought together those two things for me, that art could make an impact in the world through aligning with activists, and that's a strategy that I've continued to employ in my work. And I just remember spending a lifetime of protesting against as a kid, and then coming upon the Women's Building in Los Angeles. It was it rocked my world totally. It was like, whoa.